Vaping, a Youth Culture Analysis by Alexander Hilly. What is vaping?
E-cigarettes, or vapes, are battery-operated devices that produce vapor instead of smoke. And instead of being packed with tobacco, they have cartridges filled with a liquid that contains flavorings and nicotine. Vapes haven't gone through a health and safety review yet, but that hasn't stopped big companies from making all sorts of unfounded claims and tempting you to try them. Meanwhile, the science is in. Researchers have found harmful ingredients in vapes, including ultrafine particles that can damage the lungs, oils and flavorings that are linked to serious lung disease, volatile organic compounds like benzene, which is found in car exhaust, and poisonous metals like nickel, tin, and lead. And then there's nicotine, which is extremely addictive and especially bad for young people because of the way the brain works. Our brains grow rapidly until we reach our mid-20s, and using nicotine while it's still developing can disturb this process and increase our risk for addiction and mental health issues later in life. This is because nicotine affects synapse formation in the parts of the brain that control attention and learning, which can lead to memory issues, mood disorders, and lower impulse control permanently. Kids who use nicotine in middle and high school are more likely to use cigarettes and other drugs in the future. Young people who vape are 4 times more likely to go on to smoke cigarettes than those who don't, and juuling delivers way more nicotine than smoking. A single Juul pod is equivalent to 20 cigarettes, which makes all of these risks even more dramatic. It could take years before we fully understand how vaping affects our health. It took 120 years for researchers to show how dangerous cigarettes are. But what experts already know should stop us in our tracks. Get ahead of history. Protect your brain.
Vaping and electronic cigarettes are battery-operated devices that produce aerosol. They can also contain nicotine, THC, or CBD. The 3 main components for any of these devices are the battery, the atomizer, and the e-liquid. The battery serves as a source of energy to power the atomizer, which in turn is heated and turns the e-liquid into a vapor. Physical harms. Due to its fairly recent origins, little is known about the health implications of e-cigarettes in humans. In particular, we have no long-term data. What we do know is that it damages the lungs, or also known as vaping-associated lung injuries. The outbreak of lung injuries associated with vaping in the U.S. has documented 2,809 hospitalized cases, with 68 of these being fatal, according to the CDC as of February 18, 2020. Along with lung injuries, vaping creates a disruption of homeostasis in the body system levels. 4 systems that are affected are the circulatory system, endocrine system, the nervous system, and the respiratory system. Since the brain is connected to each of the 4 body systems, once someone begins to develop a nicotine addiction pathway in the brain, the cognitive damages are monumental. After nicotine enters the body, the endocrine system releases dopamine, which makes the brain feel pleasure. This pleasure creates a compulsion for more nicotine. The person would continue to vape, and the brain is now in a normal state with increased nicotine and dopamine. Once this chain is created, when the person tries to stop vaping, the brain will crave nicotine and get dopamine back to its new normal levels. Vaping also has socio-emotional harms through social media. Instagram has large volumes of e-cigarette and e-liquid content, but most claims take the form of ambiguous hashtags, such as hashtag not blowing smoke, hashtag quit smoking, and hashtag vapor die. While the hashtags were most often seen as making health-related claims, there was significantly less support for the idea that these were fully convincing claims. The credibility was diminished in instances when participants reflected on the fact that Instagram users were making the claims for promotional purposes only. One vapor explained, hashtag vaping saved my life, could just be used to grab smokers and get them switched over to vaping and e-cigarettes since the companies are looking for profits. Due to the unclarity of these claims, vaping and electronic cigarettes are often labeled as a healthier alternative. However, recent surveys indicate that over half of US adults now perceive e cigarettes to be at least as harmful as cigarettes, potentially attributable to the media failing to fully clarify the nuances between absolute and relative harm. The current scientific consensus is that e cigarettes are probably safer than conventional cigarettes, but e cigarettes are still not without harm. This highlights the needs for regulations relating to the manufacturing and sales of these products. Another frequent media claim is that vaping and e cigarettes can be used to stop smoking. However, only 28% of survey respondents said that they used e cigarettes to stop smoking. One of the most alarming aspects of the social emotional harms of vaping is the allure of e cigarettes and their flavorings. A distinctly youthful element to some of the flavorings, such as well known brands of confectionery, as well as more adult oriented flavorings, such as well known alcoholic cocktails, branded caffeine drinks, and most notably, controlled drugs. Combining flavors is another way to entice adolescents to turn to vaping, with wacky combinations as known as Skittles and Red Bull or Cotton Candy Kush. Other flavors include Cool Mint, Tutti Frutti, Candied Apple, and Pink Lemonade. Alarmingly, these appealing flavors had no minimum purchase age in the area of northwest England during the period covered by the study. In summary, electronic smoking creates an addiction to the nicotine, and its addictive damage not only influences the smoker's brain and lungs, but all four of the body's internal systems. Due to this addiction, those who vape or use electronic cigarettes are more likely to transition from electronic cigarettes to actual cigarettes. Adolescents are lured into vaping and electronic cigarettes through the guise of a healthier alternative to smoking and the multitude of flavors rope teens in. And cigarette smoking among young people is of particular concern because, in the long run, it is the source of more illness and mortality than all illegal drugs combined. This is because a majority of persons who smoke begin in their early teens.